Alrighty, guys. Good morning to you all here. A happy Thursday, May 8th, 2025. Hope you guys are all doing well out there. And once again, severe weather, guys, is here. We've got a hail and damaging wind and a conditional tornado risk today across portions of southern Texas and up into the lower Tennessee Valley. We've got our first pretty decent sized risk zone for actually some large hail up here into portions of western and central North Carolina, back down up here into portions of northern Georgia, northern portions of Alabama into Tennessee. Not very often that we see a hatched hail risk up here in this corridor, but there will be a setup today where we could actually see enough instability and enough shear in the atmosphere to cause some large hail across portions of that slight risk. So we're going to break all that down for you guys today. If you're up in the Midwest here, the upper Ohio Valley, up closer towards the Great Lakes, up in really just to the western portion of the United States, it's going to be a pretty nice day today. Other than that, we do have a new system that's going to be coming in. We're also going to be talking about the change, once again, guys, as I mentioned yesterday, for the return of some significant severe weather. I think every single day next week, with the exception of maybe Monday and Tuesday, we're going to have severe weather. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It looks like the rest of May is going to be very, very, very active. So enjoy, if you're not seeing severe weather today in the plains, for instance, enjoy today off. Tomorrow will be a lot lower on the severe weather risk side of things. And then we get into Saturday and Sunday, where we're really not going to see too much of anything unless it's along the Florida Panhandle, the southeast coastline there. So I do not plan on covering today, guys. I am going to do a weather brief breakdown. We're going to do a weather stream around noon today, Central Time. So here, really within the next hour that I'm making this video, and then we're going to do a game stream this evening here. So if you're wanting to learn, weather models, all that stuff, we're going to do that pretty briefly here this afternoon. A little bit of a late notice, but I've got some things to get done this afternoon. We're also going to be doing a game stream as well this afternoon. So that'll be that for today. And then tomorrow we'll be back on track and doing our nightly weather updates. Just wanted to change things up a little bit, being as though we're going to be seeing a little bit of a lesser pattern in terms of severe weather. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into what we're seeing here. And you guys can see, like I said, active storms already going across the Ohio Valley this morning. This is going to allow for some wind, some damaging wind, some large hail in areas of Kentucky, southern Illinois, southern Indiana this morning. And then we do have a couple complexes of storms that are trying to develop off the coastline of Texas there and up in towards the northwestern quadrant there of the Texas and New Mexico line. So we're going to be watching out for there, but the main event's not going to really start to initiate until about 1 to 2 o'clock this afternoon, and that'll go through about sunset, and then storms will eventually fizzle out. So let's talk about what we're going to see here with the Storm Prediction Center's outlook. I will mention the level 2 slight risk. There's 3 different slight risks that are at play for today. We've got a slight risk for damaging winds and large hail back down here into Texas, a slight risk that is damaging wind and hail driven here into the Tennessee Valley and into the Carolinas, and then we got another little slight risk back down here into Jacksonville, Florida, up towards Savannah, Georgia here. Just some different areas here. I mentioned to you guys yesterday, you can actually see where the low pressure system is sitting at. We've got a low up here, and it's going to basically be pulling in shear around that low and instability around that low to give us the threat for some severe weather. There's also going to be a little bit of severe weather down here due to that jet stream just expanding itself out in size. So we'll break all that down here in just a second in terms of what that's going to look like. But marginal risk and slight risk at play for today. There are 2 tornado risk zones. There's actually a pretty decent 2% tornado risk here for northern portions of Alabama, northern Georgia, northwestern portions of South Carolina, western and central North Carolina, southwestern Virginia, southeastern Kentucky, central and eastern Tennessee. So do be mindful if you're in these areas today. A low but not zero tornado risk today, and the same applies down here to the Texas coastline and southwestern portions of extreme Texas here. We could see a brief spin up tornado later on this afternoon. Damaging winds are going to be the main threat for today. 15% in the yellow for Texas, the Georgia, South Carolina, Florida line there. No puns intended with that. And then we've got the Tennessee and the Carolinas here, Tennessee Valley and Carolinas here getting into the northern deep south here under the gun for a 15% wind threat for winds up to 60 to 70 miles per hour. Outside of that, though, we have a maroon shaded 5% for 60 mile per hour winds. Now, here's the most interesting threat. It's not very often that we get a hatched hail risk in this area here. It can happen, but it's not very often. So if you're in Jackson, Tennessee, Nashville, Chattanooga, back into western North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, my hometown, for instance, I would love to be there today seeing this. It's not very often we get that hail down there. But 1 to 2 inch diameter plus hail. We could see hail over 2 inches today for any storms that do become that grow upscale in size pretty significantly. So it's all about shear in the atmosphere, and when you have enough shear and in the right conditions around a low pressure system, you can get this to happen. So something we're going to have to watch for pretty quickly. Same thing applies down here to Texas. 2 inch plus diameter hail, not unnormal down there for those areas. They're outside of that 5% in all of the risk zones for 1 to 2 inch hail, and that risk of the slight risk down here towards northern portions of Alabama have a 1 to 2 inch diameter hail core setup for today. We'll get to the timing here in just a second. We go towards tomorrow. We have a little marginal risk that extends from Richmond, Virginia, Virginia Beach, all the way down through the rest of the Carolinas here, back down into the southeast. This is going to be as that trough continues to sweep in here. That low pressure system is going to be basically just hovering off the coastline, giving us southwesterly winds, and that's going to aid in the potential for maybe an isolated couple tornadoes, some damaging winds, and some hail tomorrow. You can see there's not a 2% at risk, but I think there will probably be one added to it eventually at some point. Not 0, but less than 2% tornado risk, and then we've got a hail and a wind threat both at 5% for 1 to 2 inch diameter hail. So today really looks to be the bigger day in terms of this whole week set, the rest of this week setup. And then we get to your Saturday forecast, and once again, little tiny marginal risk for severe weather back down here into Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Florida. I wouldn't be shocked to see that go move up a little bit as well, or expand up a little bit as well, just due to the nature of our troughing. And then we get into the day 4 through 8 outlook, and currently right now we are not expecting anything with the day 3 4 8 outlook as of right now. But the Storm Prediction Center is on the idea that there will be slight risk zones that are going to be issued here soon. I'm just kind of waiting. I think they're going to wait and probably pull that plug tonight. But lots of model ensembles and global models are agreeing in a pretty significant week of severe weather next week. So we're going to have to talk about that. That will more than likely we'll probably have multiple days highlighted over the next couple of days going into next week. So just be very, very mindful of that. If you are in the plains, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, the Southeast next week, we're going to probably have some pretty significant severe weather happening. Now, I want to mention briefly here what we're going to be looking at in terms of today's forecast. Like I said, you got showers and storms ongoing here this morning. That low pressure system is going to continue to go east here, and you can see just lots of popcorn popping up. And when you get a setup like this, it typically does promote a pretty isolated tornado risk. Any storms that can become surface-based will have the threat for a couple of isolated tornadoes, very brief low-end tornadoes. Still, it's a tornado, so be mindful of that. Have alerts on your phones, as always. Know where to go when you get a warning. But most of this is going to be hail, and anytime you get, like I said, these little popcorn bubble mini supercells, they can produce sporadic large hail. It can happen, especially with a cold core given setup. We don't have a lot of instability in the atmosphere, so storms are working basically off of shear today, but just enough to allow for that severe weather setup. Now, like I said, that large hail threat in place for the Tennessee Valley up into the Carolinas here through about 6 to 7 p.m. tonight, and then that convection coverage really starts to dissipate. This is basically daytime heat driven is what I like to call it. And then after that, we could see a couple complexes of storms working through South Carolina, the Carolinas, but not expecting anything crazy in terms of that. And then going through tomorrow, like I said, not much other than this upper level low sitting down here in the southeast. We'll get to that here in just a second. I want to go to the southeast here briefly and kind of talk about you guys, or not the southeast, but the southern Texas panhandle here. Going down here to you guys, you can see most of the storms are actually going to be in Mexico. So you can see these, spin up supercells here, not spin up supercells, but these large supercells along the Texas line in Mexico line. If any of these can get into southern Texas through the overnight hours tonight, could pose a pretty decent hail risk, some damaging winds, and some small potential for a brief spin up tornado or two there. So just something we have to watch. Not anything crazy. Like I said, there will not be live coverage today for this event. Just not going to be needed. But just be weather aware if you're in the Ohio Valley, the deep south, back over into portions of Texas as well. Here's an idea of what the southeast could look like. Sporadic thunderstorms across the northern portions of the southeast there, and then getting into tomorrow, we see more just rain and thunderstorms developing. I don't see a lot of organization with this as of right now for tomorrow's event. So, like I said, very marginal risk for severe weather, but if any storms tomorrow evening moving off the Gulf here can get organized, we could see a couple of wind, hail, and spin-up tornadoes moving off the panhandle of Florida here. It's not uncommon to see that, especially going into Saturday morning, maybe around 6, 7 a.m. So we're going to have to watch this pretty briefly. Like I said, not really looking at anything too crazy over the next 3 to 4 days. Sporadic hail, damaging winds. It's your same basic upper level low setups that happen. Some people more times not will just see general thunderstorms with these. So just be alert, be on alert as always, guys, and we'll keep you guys updated on that. I do want to talk briefly about what's going to be happening going into next week. And next week is a very interesting week. I mentioned you guys the other day that we were going to see the return for severe weather clearly, and kind of what that's going to look like. And so currently right now, we still have a ridge, a very weak ridge that's set up over the United States, keeping things nice and dry and quiet up here into the plains. You've got this upper level low that's sitting here, another upper level low back here into the Four Corners, which is supplying severe weather there and supplying severe weather down here into the southeast and the Ohio Valley for today and tomorrow. Both of those lows are going to basically move east, and they're going to weaken with time. And by the time we get to your Friday and Saturday time frame, we've really not got much here. This kind of weak upper level low just kind of sitting in place, giving us some zonal shear here, meridional shear around the low. We've got another little low pressure system off the northeast here as well that's going to give us maybe a shot at a low in severe weather risk on Saturday. Not too set in stone on that yet, but that could bring something up there if that does organize. But other than that, ridging. And I want you guys to pay attention to something. Typically, if we were in the month of like June or July or August, this would be something we would have to watch for a tropical system, because you get these lows that kind of hang off the coastline, and that warm water, they can allow for tropical systems to develop off of that low. And right now, the Gulf is warm, but it's not as warm as the central Gulf is. The northern Gulf along the Gulf Coast here, those waters are not still quite that warm yet. They're warm, but not enough to really support that. So we're going to have to just want to watch this and see if this does anything. I don't think it will. I've seen some talk about it, some chatter about it, but as of right now, this should just be a cutoff low, should allow for some rain across the southeast here. And then we start to see this low with this ridge, beautiful ridge over top, going to keep majority of the United States amazing weather on Sunday, guys. Get out there on Sunday for Mother's Day. If you have not, other than the southeast, most people should be pretty nice. That cutoff low sits there and spins and spins and spins. And, this goes into Monday and Tuesday. I think we're going to have two different areas to watch. You can see this major troughing coming through. This is what's going to support severe weather going into middle of next week. We're going to have this upper level low still sitting here after today, tomorrow, going into next Monday and Tuesday, kind of like the Ohio Valley last week where we saw that upper level low sitting there. But this could supply some pretty decent low end severe weather threat for your Monday and Tuesday across the deep south. We're going to watch that very, very closely to see if that intensifies, if that does bring any support for instability or any type of supercell threat. But other than that, we'll be watching that. And then I want you guys to pay attention here. This is changing a lot, and it's going to continue to change. But the fact that we're going to see another significant trough try to develop here, kind of a split trough. You've got a subtropical jet stream out of the Southwest Pacific that's attached to this, as well as that trough ejecting across the Rockies. This will bring severe weather next week, without a doubt. Where is that severe weather going to officially be at, though? There's actually going to be a pretty wide region where we could see severe weather next week. And this would really start Tuesday night going into Wednesday. You have a strong negatively tilted trough with a lot of shear on the backside of that low that's going to help promote instability. It's going to help promote high dew points. We'll have a subtropical connection as well with that. So I expect a very active middle of the next week. And if you're in the plains, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, you need to be watching this very, very closely. You kind of see that jet stream still split, subtropical connection. And then you guys can see, once again, another low developing on the backside of this. So it's going to be round after round after round after round after severe weather next week. I expect for a lot of people that have seen it a lot this year. I don't think we're going to see any major outbreak as of right now. That can change just a little too far out to know exact terms and details of what we're looking at severe weather-wise. But as of right now, I expect significant severe weather, and it could even be going into Thursday and Friday that we would see the higher end threat days. And, we got a lot of shear. And when you have a lot of shear aloft in the atmosphere with a ridge underneath of it here, you promote instability. You promote very high instability values. In fact, if this does organize, I'm getting more and more concerned for this significant severe weather setup next week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday would be that time frame, the 15th and beyond. And we've talked about this for a couple days now. And, you get into this as well, and you get in, more just troughing and troughing and troughing and troughing. And sometimes I will say this could be a good thing. When you get consistent troughing, days and days and days without a break, it does allow for less instability over time to build. It basically kind of uses you basically are like a runner. You run so long, you're going to get tired. The atmosphere is going to have so much instability before it gets tired. And so, going into the following week, into the third week of May, we'll have to watch and see this trend. But guys, we've got a very, very active stretch of severe weather out in front of us here. Just something to make note of in terms of where this is going to be at. A lot of the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, the Plains, the Southeast might even get into this again. I expect some pretty big risk zones coming up here in terms of next week and into the third week of May. Now, remember, guys, I do go on vacation on May 27th. So if anything happens, or not May 27th, May 29th. So if anything happens between May 29th and June 2nd, I will be directing you guys to Connor's Climate Corner. He is a TikTok creator, a weather creator as well. There's also Jessica's weather as well. She also is a good friend of mine, does weather. So if you need two people to watch when I'm on vacation, you guys can watch them as well in terms of weather coverage and as well as weather updates. So definitely go to people if I'm not ever here and around to do anything. But here's our storms. You can see showers and storms across the southeast there on Sunday and Monday across the Florida area there into the deep south. Lots of rain falling. And then we get a little bit of a break on Tuesday, and then Wednesday we start to see that troughing come through. And right now, not a lot of precip showing up on the global models, at least the GFS with this. But there we go. Maybe into Thursday, Friday, seeing some potential showers and some thunderstorms, a cold front moving through, and then things start to get a little bit more interesting as we go into next weekend and past that point. So just a lot to kind of sit and ponder over. We've got some things that we have to look at in terms of just the different dynamics in the atmosphere and all of that, etc. But we'll keep you guys updated on that. As always, have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday, guys. Be safe out there, be weather aware, and we'll see you guys in the next one.